Today on Sensorship, I talk with Nick Santonastasso. Nick was told from the very beginning that his life would be limited. Survival itself was uncertain. What no one could predict is the way Nick would choose to meet that reality. Not with denial, not with bitterness, but with an almost radical decision to live life fully, loudly, and in service of others. Today, Nick reaches millions around the world. But in this conversation, we go beneath the headlines. We talk about pain, responsibility, leadership, and the moment you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what am I going to do with it? This is a story about turning adversity into purpose and about the courage it takes to own your life exactly as it is. If you like this episode, please give it 5 stars and share it with someone who needs to hear it, because stories that make a difference deserve to be heard. Hello, Nick. Welcome, and thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
To get us started, would you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on, everybody? For those that are listening and watching, I'm Nick Santonastasso, global keynote speaker and entrepreneur. 29 years ago, I was born with a super rare genetic disorder called hand-heart syndrome, which it left me with no legs and one arm. And during my 20s, I spent all of my 20s studying the brain and communication so we can help people break through from the prison that they've created inside of their brain. And so I'm happy to be here, and we're going to do some chatting, some enlightenment, some tools and strategies, but I'm just excited to be here and share some gold and wisdom with you.
Sounds great. I'm very excited. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit what life was like growing up with hand-heart syndrome?
Yeah, so hand-heart syndrome was the super rare genetic disorder that either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. At the time of my birth in 1996, I was actually the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen this happen to. And out of the 12, 8 of those babies passed away due to undeveloped organs. And so they gave me about a 30% chance to live. I was born, all my organs were 100% healthy, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs. And I was the baby of the family, and I think that was a blessing because I think my parents got the split test parent, like being a parent. And so they already had 3 kids, and then the 4th one, they didn't take it easy on me regardless of having no legs and one arm. And so my parents, I guess, had this awareness that if we make the home this perfect, safe place with, stepping stools and loops on the zippers and making it really easy, that Nick will be smacked in the face by reality when he leaves the house or when we're no longer here. And so I got beat up by my siblings, just like everybody gets beat up by their siblings. And, my parents, for example, would put my clothes in front of me or my food in front of me, and they would just be like, figure it out, but in a polite way, a nice, polite way of not physically doing it for me, but only guiding me with words. And I think that really programmed me to be solution oriented and to find the solution and not really focus on the problem. And yeah, there's a bunch of rabbit holes that we can go down through of the psychology that the environment created for me. But growing up, it was all I knew with hand-heart syndrome. And this is someone who was thrown into the human experience and had no other viewpoint or perspective on having legs or arms. And so it is what it is. But there's a lot of rabbit holes we can go down on what that environment did for my brain as well.
As I was reading a little bit about you, I heard you say somewhere or read that you said limitations can be invitations. And I was wondering, when was the first invitation for you, or when did that mind shift happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my first probably big invitation was like mobility or lack of mobility, right? And so like seeing maybe my brothers and sisters run around and they were like Nick slow, or I didn't really know how to walk, or at first I would like roll around, or even things of like getting on a chair or getting on the couch, and so I think problems are gifts once we learn from them. And I think one of the biggest problems humans have is that they think they shouldn't have problems. And they also, when most humans are wired that when they experience a problem, they think they're doing something wrong. But what if it was the total opposite? What if every single time that you experience a problem or a challenge or an obstacle, that was your invitation to level up and get to the next level of life? And so I think all of my problems actually became gifts once I overcame them. So, for example, the problem, we can call it a problem or a gift of mobility or immobility. We can we can call the problem or the gift of, not being tall or not being fast or not being the strongest one, right? And all of those things were invitations. And so, to answer your question, I think the meaning we attach to the problem makes us feel either good or bad. And for me, problems are gifts, and I think the bigger problems you solve, the bigger blessing you get at the end of the tunnel.
And you get that satisfaction of solving the problem by yourself. And yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
that
being
sounds really good.
independent, right? And I think
That's
yeah, I think
key.
also though, I think as men, we if we don't have problems, we create problems so we can go fix things because we like to fix things as well. And some people are addicted to problems.
Um, was there a specific moment when you realized that you could help others and that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think I fought that for a very long time in the sense that my dad was like, you should be a speaker or you could be a talk show host and you can help people. And at that time, even being a teenager, I was in this victim mentality of like, I hate the world, I hate what happened to me, I hate my body, I hate people, just to be authentic. And so I was like, Dad, I don't care about people and I don't want to talk to people. And what do you want? I don't want to be a speaker, and I think my first realization was when I was about 18 years old and I was on the high school wrestling team. And my older brother was a wrestler. I wanted to be just like my brother, and so I was able to become a wrestler. And my senior year, I came off the mat after losing a match. I lost a lot of matches, and so I came off the mat after getting my butt kicked. And this lady came up to me crying, and I was like, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" And she was like, "Nick, I want to thank you." And I was like, "For what?" And she was like, "My daughter's over there on the sideline and she never wanted to do a sport. She never wanted to do an extracurricular activity. But seeing you out there, she asked me, she wants to try new things. You not only motivated her, inspired her, but you did something to her brain. You shifted her perspective." And in that moment, I felt the fuzzy feeling I think we all feel and that we're all striving for, which is the feeling of fulfillment. And the fulfillment came from being a gift to others or contributing in some sort of way or feeling at least valuable or seen. And I think that's what all of us as humans want, is to feel seen and to be valued and want to be heard, and to be of service. And so I think that was my first moment where I was like, hey, I wasn't even focused on helping people and I help people. Imagine if I placed my attention and my energy on serving people, what kind of magic that could happen into the world. And for those that are listening, the something that you can extract from this story is that as human beings, really, the only reason why we suffer is because we're hyper focused on ourselves and not what we can do for the world. And I think the moment that you shift from an inward person to an outward person, and you realize that you actually went through your pain and your trauma so you can gift it back to the world in a more healthy, holistic way, or you can collapse time for people. I think that's when life starts to change, when you realize that you've always been the gift, but you've been hiding.
That sounds great. And so you went towards more, I don't know how to phrase that, something more purposeful.
Mm.
And what was the first step? Whether it's public speaking or social media, because you didn't mention that in your introduction, but you're a really big social media person. What was that first step like, and how did it feel the first
Yeah,
time you got onto a stage,
yeah,
for example?
yeah. I think I think everything we want in life is on the other side of what we fear the most. And so there's people out there listening right now that are like, I'm afraid I could never create content. It's like, you should probably go create content. Or I could never share my story. Well, you should probably go share your story. Or, so I think the thing that takes up a lot of real estate in our brain, that we're kind of scared of and there's resistance to, there's magic on the other side of overcoming that. There's some sort of liberation and evolution for you. But for me, I think my first, it was probably social media, because during that time then I started creating videos and I started building a following, and then people were saying that I was impacting their lives. And so I think the first step though is, what are you passionate about sharing? What are you passionate about learning? I think, well, I know so that it's easier to speak about things that you like, and it's easier to speak about things that you actually know what you're talking about. And so if you can combine what you like with what you want to learn more about, and you can go in that direction, I think there's probably some gold there. Like, and especially nowadays with social media and the internet, there's an industry or a niche for everybody. I mean, there's literally podcasts where people just talk about plants. There's podcasts where people just talk about like painting. I mean, so there's really no excuse for like, oh, maybe no one will listen to me. No, there's a pocket of the world for everybody. And so I think the first question or the first step for people is like, what am I really passionate about learning and speaking about, and what like fires me up when I get to share it? And there's something there with their purpose and gold, but that's for them to identify.
And when you first started sharing your story, what was your intention at the time? And I'm interested in how that changed
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah. My first intention was let's get some money. To just be honest. So as a man with no legs, one arm, I think I had a big fear of like, how am I going to provide? How am I going to be independent? And my parents just the philosophy. My parents had two opposite philosophies. My mother's philosophy was like, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. And my dad was like, you could be happy, but you got to get some money. You got to be able to provide on your own. You got like he did not care regardless of the body. He was like, you got to be a provider. You got to be a man. And you got to figure it out. You got to be resourceful. And I don't think I don't think I'd be successful if it wasn't for him instilling that in me, even despite the physical circumstances. Um, and sorry, remind me of because I'll go down a rabbit hole. Remind me of the question again.
It was what your intention was when you first started sharing your story.
Yeah, yeah. So to piggyback off of that, at first it was to make money. I was like, I saw people who were speaking, they were making money. I was like, wait, I could just share my story and make money. That's really cool. And so we started off, I was making a little bit of money. And now there's a concept that we teach called the law of exposure. And what the law of exposure states is the moment you're exposed to a greater way of living or a greater way of serving or a greater way of selling or a greater way of healing, the moment you're exposed, you can never see life the same. You can never be unexposed. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And initially I got into speaking for money. And then I went to my first Tony Robbins event where I saw a man for 4 days talk for 13 hours straight, make people cry, laugh, change their life. And I was like, I want that. Like whatever that guy's on, I want what he's on. And I realized that there was levels to the game, and I realized that there was levels to mastery. And Tony taught me success leaves clues. And so if someone is highly successful in an arena, they probably know what they're doing. Go study their where they learn from, their tools, their strategies. And so then I fell in love with the game, because the truth is, as an entrepreneur, business owner, or someone who loves evolution, if you're solely in it for the money, you won't have the stamina to last. Like if you're solely in it just to make a pet, like you'll quit because the pull isn't great enough. It's not strong enough. And so luckily I met Tony and saw someone doing it at the highest level. And then I fell in love with the craft. I fell in love with orchestrating the audience. I fell in love with providing more value than anyone else in the marketplace. And therefore I'll be blessed kind of deal. Because I'll tell you what, like going through COVID, getting the business shut down, having to build another business, like I would have never lasted if I would just wanted to make money.
It's not enough of a motivation. You fell in love with really the craft. I have a feeling you're kind of you're the kind of person that will just go and learn everything there is to learn about something. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, the more you learn, the more you earn. But I also believe I had this whole identity thing, that I teach my students, in the sense that there's two types of people. You either have puddles or you have wells. Puddles are people who are a mile wide and an inch deep, and wells are people who are an inch wide and a mile deep. Meaning everybody starts off as puddles, meaning they only know surface level information. And if you don't continue the journey of learning, one day you'll get exposed at your surface level and you're shallow. And you'll either be exposed in private or you'll be exposed publicly on stage. And so I'm just committed to becoming a well. And so anything that would benefit me, anything that would benefit the world, that would bring more value to my people, to my clients, to my family, whatever it is. Yeah, I go deep on the nerdy stuff. And the lesson in this as well. In 9 years of entrepreneurship, I've really only focused on two things, and that's been the brain and communication. I don't try to learn 50 things and 50 different industries. I'm the expert and the authority with the brain and communication because I stayed in my lane. And so what I would tell people is like, you don't need to learn everything about everything. You need to learn a lot about like 1 to 2 things and go deep on those.
Preferably the things that interest you, so you stick with it.
Yeah, preferably.
There are 2 directions I want to go into. I kind of want to go into the rabbit hole of your parents a little bit. I call it a rabbit hole because you did.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
please.
what you mentioned just before with your mom being, as long as you're happy, it's all good, and your dad being more practical, saying you got to go after the money. And I'm curious, it sounds like a great mix, at least at first sight, but did it conflict at all for you as you were developing?
Yeah, for sure. Because as a teenager, lifting weights and playing video games made me happy. So like I was like, oh, I'm meeting the need of like mom, like I'm happy. And then, but like, am I a productive human to society? Am I evolving? My dad would be like, you got to figure something out. You got to do something. And so I think, yeah, I think it could get conflicting. Um, but now that I see it, I still think we need both. What I see the biggest pattern is like we're too lopsided. We're too like it's either like all work and no play, or it's all play and no work. And it's like, well, what if the more fun you had, the more money you made? What if you could play and make money at the same time? Like, what if you could have it all? And so I think that there may have been a programming for me that it's like happiness or hustle, or happiness or money, when actually you can have both. And so that would be my invitation is, yeah, it could be conflicting, but what if you can have it all? And the only reason why you don't think you can have it all is because someone told you you couldn't, and you picked up their belief. And so I would start working on trying to have it all. I want to have fun, and I want to make money. I want to hang out with people, and sometimes I don't want to hang out with people. Like I want it all.
Freedom and autonomy sounds, yeah.
Yeah. What a
Um,
blessing.
the other question I had was, you went into something that seems a little counterintuitive considering your missing limbs, is bodybuilding.
Mm.
Tell me what you learned from that. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, after I went out to, long story short, but I've worn a lot of identities in my life. I used to be like a professional prankster. I used to like make prank videos when I was younger, and I got famous for it. And then I shifted identities to bodybuilding. And basically, there was a few things as in motivation to become a bodybuilder. The first one was it, Nick believed that it, Nick wanted love. So Nick believed that if he got money and he got in shape, girls would like him. It's like a lot of guys think like this, right? And so, and does it work? It works, but none of that would ever fulfill you. But a lot of my motivation came from I wanted love from other people. So I was like, okay, I can get in better shape. But I looked at the fitness industry, and I was like, I've never seen a man with no legs of an arm be in shape. If I could be in shape, I can market it. If I can market, I get money. And I get to lift weights. So I'm meeting all the needs of being happy and making money. This is great. And so I created my compelling vision to become a bodybuilder because I'd never seen anyone do it like me, and do it in a physical body like me. And so that was the intention. And I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn. I'm a bull. And so once I have a vision, like I don't quit. And especially, so just think about how crazy you have to be have no legs, one arm, and say I'm going to get in really good shape and become a bodybuilder. And with fitness, it doesn't happen in 6 months. It doesn't happen in a year. Like that's a long-term commitment. And yeah, I just had this really compelling vision. I romanticized with my future of what it looked like, how I would feel. What it was. What are the gifts that I can give to the world? Like how can I show up? What would the content look like? I just romanticized with this vision of me becoming incredibly um, in shape, and I did so. And through that, I realized a lot of things. The first thing I realized was if you're super obsessive over something and it's really meaningful to you, eventually you will make it. Eventually you'll get it. Um, but I think the second thing that I learned was there really is no destination. Because once you look a specific way, the brain goes like, I want more, or I don't look good enough. Or once you get a specific amount of money, it's like, that's not enough. I want more. And so I think it really woke me up to the illusion of the destination when really there is no destination. I think evolution and humans are so funny. It's in life we like kick a red ball down the street, and then we go chase it, and then we finally get the ball, and then we just kick it again. And so the goalpost always moves. So I just think who I became on the journey was most valuable, which was a disciplined, motivated, in shape individual who took a body that most people would say that could never be in shape and did it, and made a lot of impact with it.
Is it still part of your routine?
Absolutely. I think the pain of going backwards will always be more painful than the pain of
Mm.
moving forward. And so there's really nothing worse than being in shape and then not being in shape. or having money and then not having money, or being strong and then not being strong, or it's like when people have mobility and then they lose their mobility. It's like one of the most detrimental things. And so for me, yeah, it's an identity thing, it's a lifestyle, and my my body is my career. I had a great. I was sitting with my doctor, and he's like, do you think The Rock would actually be so muscular if his nickname wasn't The Rock and he built this whole identity off of it? I was like, oh, that's a good point. He's like, his body is his career. And so the moment that I've seen that the body is the career, and that it would take all my areas to the life to the next level, I think it's just one of the greatest gifts that I can give myself, is nurturing my vessel, and the impact that I can share by doing so.
You seem like a very confident guy, and I'm guessing that's what people see first. At least that's what I see first. I'm wondering, what is it that people don't see? Do you have a lot of doubts on the back end, or other challenges
Yeah,
that we can't see?
yeah, for sure. I would say my biggest thing is like I try to humanize myself any second that I get, because people just think I'm like this robot and I'm like unstoppable and unshakable mindset. But no, it's like I struggle with fear, I struggle with insecurity, I struggle with doubt, I struggle with creating undesirable outcomes in my head before I even start the process. I struggle with thinking I should be further ahead by now, having more money, more successful. I've struggled with comparing myself to others. I'm just like everybody. I'm just like everybody else. I think the awareness, though, is I don't have terrible days, I have terrible minutes. And so it's like I'm aware of and by the way, for those that are listening, whether you feel insecure, inadequate, you procrastinate, you have anxiety, you're overwhelmed, you overwork, you underwork, that's not you, it's just a pattern. And so the more that you can identify the pattern, you can then strip power away from it. And so I'm aware of my patterns, I'm aware of my insecurities, I'm aware of all the things that I struggle with, but does it take over my life long? No, because I have the awareness. But yeah, I struggle with intimacy. I struggle with loving too much. I struggle with trusting people or trusting too little. I'm just like you.
And how do you make it last only a few minutes? How do you learn to move through fear and doubt and insecurity instead of letting it take control?
Yeah, I think well, first off, the first step is just awareness. And so it's like neuroscience shows that by the age of 35 years old, you're 95% unconscious, meaning your actions, your words, your emotions, your triggers, the way that you show up in the world is on autopilot. That means only 5% of your brain is conscious during the day trying to figure out what's going on. That's why change your life is so hard. So the first step is awareness, meaning you start to get more aware of like, oh, I'm insecure right now, or oh, I'm feeling anxiety, or oh, I'm creating negative outcomes in my head, or oh, I'm talking not so good talk to myself in my head right now. Like just that level of awareness and stopping and be like, oh, I'm doing that thing. That's the first step. The second step would be what we call a pattern interrupt, right? So first step is pattern awareness. Second step is pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt is interrupting the behavior or the loop with something that's totally different. So for example, if you're used to getting home and immediately going on TikTok to watch cat videos, instead of watching cat videos, it's like right when I get home, I'm going to go to the gym, right? That would be a pattern awareness, pattern interrupt. And then when you do it enough, you've stepped into step number 3, which is pattern utilization. You've taken a negative pattern, you've interrupted it, inserted a new behavior, and you've reprogrammed that into the brain. So that's what I think for any patterns, all patterns. It's like, okay, I got to be aware I'm insecure. I got to be aware I'm feeling inadequate. I got to be aware that I'm procrastinating. And then you can go through that process and unwire and rewire the brain.
Sounds great. Thank you for those tips. I want to go back to your meeting with Tony Robbins. What did you learn? And I'm interested specifically in leadership and influence from him, and how has he mentored you in this direction?
Yeah, what a rabbit hole. Yeah, I'll just rattle off a few extremely powerful things that Tony taught me with persuasion, influence, and leadership. I think the first one was the highest level of leadership, or the highest level of building relationships, is the third dimension of relationship, meaning that your needs are my needs. And so the greatest leaders, the greatest communicators, and the greatest speakers, trainers, facilitators, they obsess over their clients' needs more than their clients know their needs. And that's how they over deliver so much. I know more about them than they know about themselves. I know more about their problems than they know about their problems. And so then I can over deliver on the solutions. And so obsess over your people's needs, because that's where the gold is. I think another thing would be the word of compassion. You see, humans, the moment someone feels judged, you immediately close the door for transformation. And so as a leader, as a guide, as a facilitator, a teacher, a communicator, you have to literally hold the baseline of no judgment regardless of what comes up, and you have to love people back into themselves. And so that's like a whole rabbit hole of like a very deep and meaningful process. But loving all forms of people and holding space for people and making them feel safe is one of the fastest ways to get people to change their lives. And they're changing their lives. We're not doing it. We're just creating the container where they can change their lives. I would say the third one would be constant and never ending improvement. And so always optimizing your processes, always optimizing your events, always analyzing what did we learn? What did we do wrong? What could be better after everything? And that's the reason why he's still the best at 60 plus years old and outworks all the 20-year-olds in the industry, is because he's just always optimizing everything. I mean, there's a bunch, but I would say over deliver, bless enough people and you'll be blessed.
In 3 words, what's a great leader in your opinion?
Grounded, heart-centered, boundaries.
Love it, love it, love it. You often talk about energy, and I wanted to ask you how you maintain yours, and if you have any tips for how can we access our energy even when we feel drained, and that happens to me at least once a day.
Yeah, of course. Well, there's 2 different types of emotional states. We have expansion and we have contraction. Expansion are all the beautiful emotions, beautiful energy, gratitude, joy, happiness, fulfillment, contribution, right? These are all good things we want to feel. And then we have the energy of contraction, which is the energy of inadequate, insecure, not enough, loss, fear, uncertain, all those not so good things when we're operating out of our lower self. And I think the goal is to build a beautiful baseline. That's what I think the goal is. I think the goal is to be in a beautiful place more than you're in a suffering place. Because let's go back, most humans are so used to being in a negative place that they don't even know what it feels like to feel beautiful. And because the negative state feels so comfortable, that the moment they feel good, they sabotage it to go back to what's known. And so I guess my advice, my guidance for people on energy would be, you can only attract the qualities that you possess. That's a law, right? And so it's like, if you want love, you got to be more love. If you want happiness, you actually have to create happiness within yourself. If you want security out there, you got to create security within yourself. You can't attract anything that you are not. But also, what you don't get the life you have, you get the life you focus on. And what you focus on, you feel, and what you feel is your life. And so that would mean that wherever your focus is going to make up your energy. That's why we have people with all the money who are still pissed off and angry, because they're always focused on the wrong thing. And then you have people who are very poor and they're happier than you. And you're like, wow, who's really rich? And so my advice to people would be very aware of what you're focusing on, because you don't get the life you have, you get the life you focus on. And if you're focused on the wrong thing, or you go down the rabbit holes of insecurity and inadequacy and all the negative stories you've been telling yourself, that's the reason why you feel that way. And the only person that controls your focus is you. And so understand that when you are in a not so good energetic place, you created it by what you're focusing on, what meaning you attach to the experience, and the language that you're using to describe your world. And that's why we live in a very interesting video game. And that's why people are fascinated with me, because imagine you were in a video game and you saw a guy with no legs and one arm, and he pulled up on the horse and he had a bag full of money and he had the princess, and you'd be like, how does he have that? What cheat codes is he running? It's because it's the operating system, it's the psychology, it's the control of focus and the meaning you attach to experiences. And These are rabbit holes that we could go down forever. But what I would say to people is what's wrong in your life is always available, but so is what's right. And you get what you choose.
And it's up to you to create more and attract more. Love that. Love that.
But do you need more if you're whole?
Hmm.
Who
You got
knows?
me there. Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, right? Because I want more and you want more, but it's like, would we want more if we were truly whole? Who
It's
knows?
true. We always want more of everything. And it does help to slow down and say, wait a minute, maybe I have enough.
Who
And
knows? I don't, I'm
yeah.
not saying I'm right. It's just funny to go back and forth, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. You've accomplished a lot. I mean, bodybuilding, speaking, coaching. What's next, and how do you keep evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as humans, and I'm going to speak to the men at least, because I'm not going to tell women how they should live life. We're totally different human beings. But I would say, as humans, I think it's important that you put yourself back into the fire when you get comfortable. And so it's really easy to like have success and then like kind of get complacent and you're like, I'm pretty good. And so for me, I just put myself back in the fire. I moved from America to Dubai. And so this is going on my second year in Dubai. I started jumped into a whole different industry or, being new in this side of the world. So that's cool. Um, I'm creating one of the biggest events in the world for people of determination. So these are people who are physically or mentally challenged in some sort of way. And we're going to create this festival to celebrate them and their caregivers. And so that's going to be the biggest event in the world for people of determination. I like to make music. I like to create funny videos. Nick is multidimensional. And so I think the next evolution or the next challenge for Nick is staying true to his multidimensional self.
Can you tell me more about that festival? I'm fascinated by what you're doing
Oh,
here.
really? Yeah. So basically, here in UAE, they don't use the word handicap or disabled. They've actually changed the law to POD, people of determination. And that was the moment that I fell in love with UAE and Dubai. I was like, wow, I can get behind this leadership. And one of their goals is to create Dubai as the most accessible place in the world. And who better than the unicorn with no legs and one arm who's running around doing crazy things is I wanted to create a festival where not like a pity party, but like a festival where we're celebrating people. We have keynote speeches. We have a business area where we're connecting businesses and brands to PODs that want to get hired and do brand deals. We're going to have a science fair where children are creating new technology for autism or people who are blind and seeing who wins and giving out scholarships. We're going to have keynote speeches. I mean, we're going to have adaptive sports. It's just going to be this whole circus of inspiration, motivation, and evidence that regardless of what the physical body looks like, the mind has always been the mind has always been the limit, and like a big party. So that's what we're doing.
That sounds great. Is it focused on like inspiration and education? Is there a fundraising side to it? What's the
Yeah. So
objective?
of course. So the plan is for each ticket to be one wheelchair donated. And so
Mm.
our plan is this first year to get 10 to 15,000 tickets sold, which would be, I think, set some Guinness World Records for the most wheelchairs donated in one sitting. A bunch of Guinness World Records would be broken, but yeah, the intention is to give back and first help UAE with accessibility, wheelchair ramps, people who need medical equipment, children, adults, all that different type of stuff, and then we can take it global. But I would want it to be a self-sustainable machine that gives back to people who can't afford their equipment.
That sounds great. When is that? Do you know already?
January of 2027. We're finalizing the dates.
All right, I'll be on the lookout. That sounds really amazing.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about impact, what has had the more impact on you? Is it the big stage moments or the quiet one-to-one connections?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I would say I'd say they're both meaningful. I had a moment where I got to acknowledge my parents in front of 15,000 people to that they went forth with the pregnancy, and the only reason why I'm here is because my parents decided to go forth with the pregnancy versus not going forth with the pregnancy. So that was a really deep, meaningful moment for me as well. But then you have moments where um, you're with your business partners and things are all crumbling apart, and just look at each other and laugh and know we're not going to die and we're going to survive. And what a gift to have people that roll with you, whether you have money or don't have money. I think the private moments of brotherhood where you would be happy in a Rolls Royce or happy under a bridge together, those are really deep and meaningful moments. And I think also, I think we get jaded. Most of the most meaningful moments don't require any money. I think it just requires company, the company that you're with, and the presence and the energy. So I think there's all different types of beautiful moments, big and small, and they've all impacted me in such a way.
Sounds great. Um, we've been talking, and it is a main theme on censorship, about success. What's one thing you've unlearned since you started?
If working hard equated to more money, the donkey would own the farm one day. And
So
so
don't
we've
work
all been,
harder, work smarter.
yeah, we exactly. We've all been programmed that you got to work harder equals more money, but the harder you work, the more tired you are. For example, it's like the guy building my house is working way harder than me, but the pay grade is totally different. And so it's not the harder you work, it's not even the more knowledge you have. It's the person who understands that they can have an idea in their brain and bring it into the real world and make money off of it. That's a person who's optimistically dangerous in a good way because you can never run out of ideas. And if you never run out of ideas, you can never run out of money. That's what we call imaginators. It's the highest level of value. And so that's one thing that I've unlearned is that slamming my keyboard and sitting there for 12 hours probably won't make me more money. And it takes the same amount of energy for you to close $1,000 as it takes for you to close $50,000. And it's probably actually easier to close the 50K deal because you're working with people who have money versus people who don't have money. So there's this whole rabbit hole of like, we've been programmed that harder you work, the more money you make, but it's been a lie.
If your younger self could see you now, what would he say? Let's say the 17-year-old kid that was wrestling, if he could see you now.
Yeah, he'd be like, "How'd you do that? How'd you pull that one off?" Like never saw that one coming. I think no, I think you'd be happy. I could show this on screen. What's interesting about that question is I've actually taken um, a baby picture of me and I've AI'd it, so I'm holding my younger self, and it's a reminder of my.
Oh, that's lovely.
So one, it's the only time Nick will have hands because it's AI, but it's me holding my younger self, and really it's a reminder that it's like I got you, we're safe, I'll protect you. And what's so interesting is most of us have become the adult that little boy or little girl needed. We would now protect if we saw that little boy, didn't know that was us that little girl, we would have protected them, stood up for them, we would have loved on them. And so I think we grow to everything that we wanted as a kid. So I think my little guy would be like, I don't know how you did it, but touche, well done. Way bigger than what we ever expected.
It's a really interesting point. I think even those of us who were lucky enough to have wonderful parents, we still need to do some healing, and to take care of, like you said, the little guy, in the
Of
way that
course.
should have been, because they can't get it perfectly, right? They try,
Of
but
course.
it's, yeah.
Yeah,
So I love that.
I think the biggest misconception is that adults have their stuff together. It's like that's the biggest lie. We're all just pretending. We're all
We're
just
all
figuring it
broken
out.
in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, we're all just figuring it out. But I think one of my biggest breakthroughs was realizing that it's mom and dad's first time doing life too.
That's true. That's true.
And
Yes,
so having some
they didn't
compassion
know.
and empathy and grace, and they're doing the best they could with what they knew in their programming. And so, yeah, I'm not a parent, but what I do know is you're going to jack your kids up whether you like it or not. But it's like, will they have the tools to integrate? That's the gift, right? It's like, no, and there is no perfect life, and no one relates to a perfect life, and your kids have to go through their own timeline and their own human experience and their own integration and their own breakthroughs. That's why we came to Earth.
Someone with a perfect life would be quite boring, I think.
Yeah, they'd want to go to the next planet.
Yeah, and I always tell my kids jokingly, but eh, I don't say for your school. I say for your therapy because you are going to need it. Everybody does. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think about legacy? And if so, what do you hope people remember about who you've been?
It's such a funny question. I mean, legacy in itself is such a funny thing. I think I'm 50. I care and then I don't care. I, I think when I moved to Dubai, I started thinking about legacy in the sense of like, well, if I would leave anything behind, it'd be cool to have Dubai as the most accessible place. Like to know that I was a small part of like people like me could wheelchair ramp all around and have freedom. Like that's pretty cool. So that's something as well. But then on the flip side, in the most polite way, I realized that when you die, the birds are going to bird, and the cars are going to car, and the water is going to water, and the earth is going to earth, and no one's going to really care. To be honest, I think it's, I think it's serious, and I also think it's really silly. Um, so yeah, as at 29, I don't know if I have a firm stance on legacy, and I think make the money, blow it while you're here. Don't leave it for your kid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Enjoy it.
No, I don't know. Like I said, though, I think it could be serious, and then I think sometimes as humans we're way too serious, and like no one's gonna remember you anyway.
Yes, that's true. But I do think there's value to leaving the world a little bit better than we found
Of
it.
course, of
I
course.
think, yeah.
Yeah, at least be on the good side, all right, guys and girls. At least be on the good side of legacy.
For anyone listening who's facing their own limits, because we all have them, physical, emotional, psychological, whatever, what's one truth you wish you could tell them?
Mm, I would say everything in your life is either working on you or working for you, but it's always working. And so most of the time, life is going to be working on you versus working for you. So get used to it. Get used to hitting the limit. Get used to hitting the wall. But also get curious about the wall. Get curious about the limit. Get excited about the problem because as we mentioned, our problems are gifts once we learn from them. And so new levels, new devils. If you got some limits, that means you're pushing the boundaries. What a blessing! What a gift!
New levels, new devils, I think it's going to be my new motto for a while. I
I like
like
it.
it. Where do you get your inspiration? And where I'm going with this is, do you have a book or a podcast or some other resource that you would recommend people dive into?
Yeah, of course. There's this guy with no legs, one arm. His name's Nick Santonastasso. He's got really great content and books and courses. No, but at this point in my life, I'm more on of I'm my podcasts or my listens are more of spiritual gurus these days. I think business is actually more spiritual than strategy. But that's just my take on that. It's a whole nother rabbit hole. But as of now, I listen to Ram Dass, I listen to Alan Watts, I listen to Wayne Dyer. These are like, they're all past, but they just got cool philosophies and not taking life too seriously. And so it gets me to chill out a little bit. So I think there's motivation and inspiration there. And then I also, if I'm honest, my more direct and I guess aggressive answer is I know how fragile life is. And I probably don't even know how fragile, like I think I can grasp it, but like we don't grasp it because we're just so in this autopilot. But death drives me a lot. That I'm going to expire, that this could all be gone tomorrow. And that's a reminder for me to execute, to expand, to push when I'm scared, to cry when I cry, to heal when I want to heal, to move through things, not hold grudges, take the higher road because it's way too fragile. And I think a lot of people forget that your biggest illusion is that you have time. And so that's a big driver inspiration for me. I wake up, I'm like, I got another one. Like, all right, let's go. Because we have no idea.
That's true. We don't know. We just know the clock is ticking. Where can people find you, follow you, get in touch?
Yeah. Yeah, so the main platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all of them at Nick Santonastasso. But if you type in Nick Santo, I got tattoos, no legs, one arm. You can't miss me.
You're easy to recognize.
Yeah.
This will be my last question, Nick. what can we wish for you at this point of your journey?
That the heart stays open, that the walls don't become too high, that I don't let sour people tarnish the big heart I have.
Very nice. Thank you so much for this time today. I loved our conversation, and
You're welcome.
I hope maybe you come back to talk to us about that event when it's done and how it was.
Of course, let's do it. Let's make some magic.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Nick.